The Color of Silence. Chapter 1. The apartment was too quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet that descends after a long day or the cozy hush of snowfall. No, this was the kind of silence that screamed. Ellis Wren had lived alone for 8 months since Lara left. She had taken the cat, the books, even the warm coffee mug with the chip in the handle. She said she couldn't breathe in the apartment anymore. Now Ellis felt the same way, but he stayed. The walls had once been white but now pulsed with a grey-yellow hue, like stale breath. The windows rattled when the wind blew, though it was rarely strong. Time moved slowly inside the apartment. Slower each day. Some days it didn't move at all. Each morning, Ellis sat by the window and stared into the street. Same people, same cars, same dull clouds. His phone hadn't buzzed in weeks, and he had stopped checking email. Something had started to whisper to him at night. Chapter 2. It began as a hum. At first, he thought it was a neighbor's fridge or an old pipe moaning. But it moved. It wasn't consistent. It came from different corners of the room. Sometimes behind the couch, sometimes from the hallway, or even inside the wall above his head. He once pressed his ear to the plaster for an hour. Nothing. Then the sound returned at midnight. Always midnight. It sounded like breathing, a ragged, shallow gasp. But there was no rhythm to it. No inhale or exhale, just the sound of something existing without peace. He called the landlord once. No answer. He tried to record it. The playback was empty. It was in his head, maybe. But the kind of thing that knows it's in your head. That wants to be there. Chapter 3. Sleep stopped being restful. It became a fight. He'd jerk awake at odd times, heart pounding, chest tight. Sometimes screaming, sometimes with tears drying on his cheek. He never remembered the dreams, just the feeling, like he was being watched from inside. Once, he caught his reflection blinking out of sync. Once, he saw his shadow shiver though he was still. He stopped shaving, stopped showering, ate only crackers and bread, too afraid to leave the apartment for long. The grocery store lights were too bright. The people moved too fast. One day, he dropped a jar of pickles on the linoleum and watched it burst. He stared at the broken glass and leaking brine for 20 minutes before cleaning it up with his bare hands. He didn't feel the cuts until later. That night, the whispering returned, and it had learned his name. Ellis, it rasped. Alice. Chapter 4. He tried boarding up the bedroom door, thinking it came from there. Didn't help. He unplugged the fridge, the heater, even the router. Still, the whispering grew louder. Sometimes it rose to a high-pitched whine that made him clamp his hands over his ears until they bled. The worst was the silence afterward. Thick. Heavy. Tense like a breath held too long. He bought earplugs, then noise-canceling headphones. He blasted white noise. Nothing helped. The sound wasn't around him, it was in him. In his jaw, in his teeth, vibrating through the bone. When he pressed his palms to the sides of his head, he could feel it, like something crawling between his skull and skin. A mouth without a body. Chapter 5. It began to speak, not words, not at first, but images, memories, half-formed feelings. A looping reel of failure, loss, and despair played behind his eyes. Lara leaving, his father dying, being a child, alone at school, watching the clock tick down, knowing no one was coming for him. The voice knew him. It whispered the things he feared most. You will die here. No one misses you. You were never real to them. Even your shadow is trying to leave. He shouted back once. Shut up. Just, shut up. The silence that followed was worse than the voice. It obeyed. For 1 hour, there was nothing. Not even the sound of his own breathing. He screamed into the air, but there was no sound. He smashed a plate, and it shattered in silence. The world had gone mute. When sound returned, he cried. Chapter 6. He started painting again. He hadn't touched a brush since art school. Lara always encouraged it, said it helped his anxiety. But now he didn't paint to relax, he painted to survive. To bleed the noise onto canvas. His first painting was a blur of black and red. A tunnel, maybe, a throat, or a scream. The second was worse. A pale face, mouth wide in horror, hands on either side of the skull, standing on a bridge with the world melting behind it. He didn't remember painting it. Didn't remember buying the canvas. Didn't remember cutting his own hand and using the blood for the eyes. It stared at him from the wall. Sometimes it changed when he looked away. Chapter 7. He stopped opening the curtains. The world outside felt fake, like a set. He started hearing footsteps in the ceiling, or under the floorboards, a thumping heartbeat that didn't match his own. Then came the knocking, 3 slow knocks on the front door. Always at the same time, 3:33 a.m. He never opened it. The peephole showed nothing, not even the hallway. He taped paper over it. It was gone the next night. He bolted the door. The knocking moved to the window. He lived on the 4th floor. Chapter 8. Ellis left a note on his door. I am not well. Please help. No one replied. Not his neighbors, not the postman, not even the landlord, who, come to think of it, he hadn't seen in months. Maybe he didn't exist. Maybe none of them did. The city outside his window seemed to breathe now. Buildings slouched. Street lamps bent like weeping heads. Clouds clawed at the sky. His own reflection didn't match him anymore. It was slower, sadder, smiling. It didn't blink. Chapter 9. He tried calling Lara. The line went dead as soon as she answered. He heard her voice, but it wasn't words. Just a scream that rose and rose until the phone melted in his hand. He threw it across the room. It didn't land. It disappeared mid-air. The walls began to close in. Not metaphorically, literally. Each day, the apartment was smaller. The ceiling hung lower. He measured the hallway and found it was 2 inches shorter than the day before. The whispering now came from inside his head, no longer around it. Ellis, it said, gentle and patient, let me out. Chapter 10. One morning, he woke to find he couldn't see color anymore. The world had become shades of beige and gray. His own skin was paper-thin and cracking. His fingernails blackened. He painted one last thing, a mouth without a face. Just a scream suspended in oil and blood. Then he took the painting off the wall and climbed inside it. Chapter 11. No one lives in that apartment now. The rent is cheap, but no one stays. They say at night, you can hear something knocking. Sometimes from the window, sometimes from inside the wall. And if you look too long into the mirror, you'll see a man screaming. Mouth wide, eyes hollow, arms raised. Not for help, but because he knows you see him. And that means the silence knows you, too.